The 8-day celebration of Hanukkah is a feast of dedication commemorating the cleansing of the Second Temple in 165 BCE. It had been made unclean by the idolatry and sacrifice of an unclean pig by Antiochus Epiphanes' army. When the Holy One of Israel raised up an ordinary family to do extraordinary things, Israel was delivered from the Greeks. Judah Maccabee, or Judah the Hammer, and his family rose up against the oppression and idolatry of the Greek ruler. The Maccabees spearheaded the spiritual revival necessary for victory, and when the Greeks were driven off the holy mountain, the Maccabees rededicated the temple and Israel to serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He is Hagoel Yisrael, the Redeemer of Israel.
The ability to rededicate the temple with holy oil in the menorah is a cause for annual remembrance. In like manner, as disciples of Yeshua, we stumble into unclean places in our walk, and therefore we have need to repent. Before the cleansing salvation of Yeshua, our Redeemer, we all carried unclean thoughts and deeds in our hearts.
The seed pattern for Hanukkah in the Torah is the example of the second Passover for those unable to celebrate at the appointed time. And Leviticus 23 gives 2 sets of instructions for the celebration of Sukkot, one for a 7-day celebration and one with 8 days.
Later, 2 kings of Israel observed double feast celebrations, a double Passover and a double Sukkot. The prophet Haggai prophesies of an event that begins in the 9th month, Kislev 24. But it is based on something that happened before, when the foundations of the temple were laid.
Set now your heart from this day and before, from the 24th of the 9th month, back to the day when the foundations of the sanctuary were laid. Set your heart, is there any more seed in the silo? Even the grapevine and the fig tree and the pomegranate tree and the olive tree have not borne their fruit. But from this day on, I will provide blessing.
When King Solomon celebrated the inauguration of the first temple sanctuary, he declared a double Sukkot celebration.
The prophet Haggai plants clues linking the seed of the Torah and the celebration of Hanukkah by posing a question of the priests concerning what is clean and unclean.
Then Haggai said, "If one who is unclean from a corpse touches any of these, will the latter become unclean?" And the priests answered, "It will become unclean."
If a man had become unclean because of a corpse, this was the criteria for establishing a second celebration of Passover in Numbers chapter 9, verses 9 and 10. Historically, Hanukkah was a late 8-day celebration of Sukkot because the sanctuary had not been cleansed from unclean things after the war with the Greeks.
This second Sukkot was known as the Feast of Dedication, and the celebration continues every year as a minor holiday.
The annual commemoration is so important that in John 10:22-23, Yeshua made his declaration of unity with the Father and his dedication to call his sheep while he was walking in the temple at Hanukkah.
Yeshua said his sheep would recognize his voice at Hanukkah. This Hanukkah, we're not walking in the temple, but we are walking temples of the Ruach HaKodesh, because Yeshua called us out of the abomination of desolation in our lives.
Sukkot was a Thanksgiving celebration. In the second Sukkot, Hanukkah, also is a time for gratefulness to the one who has called us out of darkness into his marvelous light.
Shall we reflect upon the great miracles the Father has performed in purifying the corpses of our hearts, hearts that were once dead in trespasses and sin?
As we reflect on those things from which we have been delivered, those corpses of addiction, twisted thinking, and words of desolation that polluted the temples of our bodies, it becomes a celebration for so great a deliverance. This year, at the Feast of Dedication, let us celebrate our clean temples, now empowered by the Ruach HaKodesh to serve the Father and His sheep.
The holy Menorah represented the 7 spirits of Adonai, and it lit the bread of faces representing all Israel in the presence.
The beauty of the lighting of the menorah was that in the building the tabernacle, all Israel, both men and women, brought the holy oil.
We are all to be crushed like our suffering servant Yeshua, dedicated to the Father's house and all those who gather there to serve Him.
Although we have been crushed and poured out like the olive harvest at the season of Sukkot, at our second Sukkot, Hanukkah, we yield the oil of dedication and gratefulness for the redemption from the abominations that cause desolation in our lives and in the world.
The Torah is a light. The commandment is a lamp. Yeshua is the light of the world, and Yeshua commands us to be the light of the world, dedicating ourselves anew to His commandments in order to serve the world. Like the Maccabees of old, this generation needs to free itself from the corpses of sin and compromise that permit the enemy to overrun the holy spaces of our lives.
The founders of Hebraic Roots Network have joined to rededicate HRN to our original vision, taking Yeshua and the Torah to the nations. Please join with Daniel, Tony, Bill, Hollisa, Valerie, Rico, Brad, and Eddie in dedicating ourselves anew to hear the voice of our great shepherd of the sheep, Yeshua, and to proclaim salvation and His word to all those who will hear His voice until Messiah returns. We're just ordinary people, but the God of Israel does extraordinary things with ordinary people who are dedicated to Him. Hebraic Roots Network dedicates itself anew to delivering programs to the body of Messiah that are not merely informational, but transformational. In the coming months, expect to see programs that meet our viewers at different levels of learning. Expect to see team teaching and a more Hebraic approach than ever before. Expect new faces and new enthusiasm for Yeshua's commandment to make disciples. Expect the most inspirational revive in 2017. Expect extraordinary things with ordinary people. Lord, You are my light. I dedicate my temple to You. May Your word shine through me and light the faces of all Israel.